Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Awaken to Your Soul Path. I am your host, Barbara, and today I am joined by the beautiful Michelle Chen. And our topic today is talking about transforming our blocks into our gifts. And we are at the 5-5 portal when we are recording this. So this is powerful energy that has to do with transformation and stepping into the dreams that you've been postponing for a long time because it's finally time to stop playing it safe and to go for it. And for that, of course, you need to transform your blocks into gifts. So, what a beautiful day to talk about this topic. Thank you for joining me today, Michelle.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love all this synchronicity because when I booked um this talk, right, with you, I didn't even know. And so I love that it just fell on the 5-5 portal, and you are absolutely right that this is a wonderful time for transformation, for new beginning, and sort of transmuting and learning the the from our past experiences, so transmuting everything, the lessons and challenges that we've learned, that we have, like they've occurred over all the months or years, and then transmuting it into new experiences and wisdom
Yes.
for our path ahead. And so thank you so much for having me here to share more about uh transforming
Yes.
your blocks into gifts.
hmm I love that. It's such an important topic because, well, this is a very energetically active period. This entire year already has been
Yes.
very energetically active, and lots of people are being awoken to their purpose. And this comes with a set of challenges with navigating blocks, and these are meant to get you ready to step into that purpose that is meant solely for you. So maybe a good place to start is talking about what types of blocks people can expect.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Oh my goodness. So I'm gonna share my own experience because I think like I awakened a couple of years ago,
hmm
going from a place of like I was very rational, right? And being told that, whatever that we are seeing and sensing, believing in, it's not true. It's just in your imagination. Um, and so there
Yeah.
was a lot of some of the blocks as we are awakening. And so what one of the things I would say first is uh, I know that I was awakening because a couple of reasons. I felt like I was here for something more than what I was told to have, like the 9 to 5 job, all the check boxes that what society considers to be successful. I check all those boxes, but I was still deeply unhappy and deeply unfulfilled. And so I kept searching for about my teens or my 20s, like, what am I here for? And so
Yeah.
that naturally led me to this path. I experienced a really dark night of the soul that
Mhm.
forced me to come home to myself. And so all the blocks started, what happened was, in order to shift me to who I am today, to see my purpose with clarity and then to embody it, because you may know your purpose, but you may be afraid to step into it.
Yeah.
I had to do multiple layers of shifts and multiple blocks. And so if you think of it as an onion, you start out first, the first layer peeling. And that was that um, fear of being who I was. Like I didn't know who I was truly,
Mhm.
but I
Yeah.
also didn't know how to get there. And so as I started peeling, I started releasing the blocks that was because of my parenting, because of my parents, the blocks that was generational,
Mhm.
ancestral, the blocks that were cultural, societal expectations, all of that people pleasing, fear of rejection, fear of persecution, right? And like I was afraid, that I wouldn't be accepted because all my life I was trying to find a place to belong. I was searching for belonging, but I couldn't find it. And so I could pretend to belong. I could pretend to be everything I'm not so
Mm-hmm.
as to belong. And I tried that for several years and it was very, very unhappy, which actually
Mm-hmm.
led me to my dark night of the soul.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to flip the script and I'm going to do something completely different. What if I tried to discover who I was and then to live my purpose?
Mm-hmm.
So that was all the blocks that happened. And then finally, as I started peeling back the blocks, started healing, it came to a point where I was like, I think this is my purpose. But then I was afraid to embody it because the blocks of being like, am I crazy? The blocks
Mm-hmm.
of can I do this? And all these other blocks. There was another layer that was all
Mm-hmm.
about like I felt this calling to be of service, to really open up and to channel, um, and to really tap into my intuitive gifts. But then I had to get rid of my past life blocks as well. And then this is also collective fear of persecution, what we call the witch wound, right? Women who were seen as crazy and have, and
Yeah.
all that stuff. And so I had to clear so many layers of it. Um, and then unworthiness as well. So it was just this years
Mm-hmm.
of blocks that was slowly kind of coming to the surface.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was a really long answer.
No, but you're saying so many really, really great points, and it might look a little bit different for every individual. But I think that the red thread, the commonality in it, is similar because I recognize what you're saying. When I was younger, I was also trying to fit in because that's human nature to not want to be the odd one out, to want to have friends, to want to be accepted, and when
Yes.
we are not being taught by school and by our parents that we are beautiful, unique beings, and maybe if trauma is happening or even when it's not, most of us are trying to find ourselves when we are younger, and we are trying to get friends and belong to the popular crowd and be asked for parties because that's how things go in school. That is the general consensus. And lots of people that are like you and me, we already feel different from other people because we think differently, we feel differently. And the couple of times I tried talking to my friends about it, they looked at me like I'd lost my marbles. And
Yeah.
so we sort of feel like there's something wrong with us that we need to change in order to fit in. So many of us are trying really, really hard to be just like everybody else, to fit in, to have friends, to live up to other people's expectations, your parents, your teachers, it doesn't really matter. And inevitably, that leads to a moment where you can call that, I think, your first dark night of the soul, where you discovered it's not working. I'm
Yeah.
trying so hard and I'm doing everything, and still I'm not accepted. Still, I'm the odd one out, and still I'm the outsider looking in. And you're exhausted and you don't know what to do anymore because it feels like you've tried it all and it's just making you miserable and tired, and it's not getting you what you want. So yeah, inevitably that leads to this pressure, this discord, this dis-ease. And it can be literally disease, but it can also just be dis-ease by itself. And that is necessary, I think, to sort of force the issue, to make it clear to you that you are trying to be someone you are not.
Exactly. And it had to reach that stage where it really was at that point. I was staring, and I like you're kind of like staring down this path, right? And it's a
Mm.
dark tunnel. And
Yeah,
I had to make that decision. Do I want to continue the rest of my life on this path?
like
And
this.
the answer was no, because I tried many different things. I
Mhm.
tried all the different things and it was just not working, which was why I was like, I'm just gonna go flip this script. My parents, so I come from an upbringing where we don't really show our emotions a
Yeah.
lot. We don't show, we buried it down. And, and I talked in a different talk with you about sacrifices a parents make, sacrifices my parents made. And
Yeah.
so my ancestral line has been a series of sacrifices that people made. And so that was expected of me.
Yes.
It doesn't matter if you're unhappy, who cares? It's a
Yeah. This
sacrifice
is
you
how
made.
we do it.
Exactly. And my parents make huge sacrifices. They're very unhappy people. But
Yeah.
they expect me to do that because they're like, this is what we do.
Yeah.
Nobody
It's
question
life.
it. Yeah. And so I obviously didn't question it. Well, when I was younger, I would, but my parents would keep telling me, you have to
Mm.
make those sacrifices. And then I was like, but for who? Who's benefiting from it? I'm
Mm.
not.
Yeah.
And then I was like, then why am I making all the sacrifices? Who's benefiting from it? I am not. I don't see anyone else benefiting from it because I was an angry person. And
Mhm.
so clearly no one, because I was angry and bitter all the time, no
Yeah.
one else around me was benefiting from me feeling this way. So I
No.
was like, you know what? Flip the script. But I think one of those things when you mentioned, right? When I talked about growing up, when we just really, really want to be part of the popular crowd. I mean, I tried.
Mhm.
People can be mean when they're teenagers, right? So
Yes,
mean.
very mean. Yeah. The
Yes,
popular girls are always incredibly mean towards the non-popular girls, the nerdy girls
yes.
or the
Yes,
outside
nerdy
girls.
girls. I was totally nerdy. I was bullied a lot when I was younger
Yeah.
too. And so
Yeah.
I think for me, it's that didn't feel like it fit in at home, didn't feel like it fit in anywhere in school and society. Nobody really understood me. And
Yeah.
so I think that really, like, I was like, I'm going to try to change myself to try to fit in. And I think at the end, what I really discovered and learned was I actually just wanted to be loved because I thought I wanted to be accepted, but then I felt it was deeper than that. I just truly want to be loved. And everything, like I grew up in a family where affection is conditional and it's you don't, you just love being loved is conditional. And
Mhm.
so I learned then, well, in order for me to be accepted and loved and praised and given attention, I need to like do all these things that was
Yeah.
expected of me. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, like I remember feeling all that affection, but this was when I knew something was wrong, was when I lived my life and I felt like all the people's attention and affection just stopped at my skin. Almost like I had a barrier and it stopped
Yeah.
there. I wouldn't let it in. And I never felt worthy despite checking all the box. And
Yeah.
then it wasn't, yeah. And so that's one of the major, major block for me was that deep unworthiness, feeling that
Mhm.
doesn't matter what I do, I'm unlovable. And that was
Yes.
the first thing I had to really clear.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because our backgrounds are very different. I don't have that cultural thing. So in my culture, it's very normal to talk about feelings. Although my mother was raised with you don't air your dirty laundry. You don't talk about it outside of the family. And here, the Second World War was fought, so there were also lots of sacrifices when it came to the war and to protecting your family. And also, you saw very clearly that if you were different from everybody else, then you were prosecuted, you were sent to the concentration camps. And so nobody spoke out. Everybody tried to keep their head low, keep their head down in order to stay alive. So the circumstances are different, but it led to the exact same thing: me feeling unworthy, me feeling unaccepted, and me feeling unloved and very lonely in all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think a lot of people on your show, a lot of people watching this, I'm pretty sure resonate our stories resonate with them on some level because there are actually a lot of people who they look like happy people. Like that's what I realized. But when you really
Yeah.
talk to them, and when they feel comfortable enough to unmask, you realize that they're actually really sad and they're really the same
Yes.
questioning, the same, they have all these blocks about, am I worthy? That's a huge one. That's a major block, especially if you're thinking about stepping into your purpose now. You need a lot of courage because for a
Mhm.
lot of us, the
Yeah.
purpose we're asked and called into, it's quite unconventional.
Mm-hmm.
So it's unconventional, and that adds to being, again, the outsider, like the outside. And
Yeah.
I had to be okay with, like, I had to first learn to love myself and
Mm-hmm.
then be okay to being an outsider and recognizing that this outsider position and all the experiences and all the blocks and experiences have actually helped me become who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
And I see that as a strength. And so everything that was taught as a weakness, I just transmuted, I changed it. I reframed my mind and to think of it as a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything that you just said. For me, it was very, very similar as what you were describing. And it's always baffling to me that we first need to feel completely disconnected and very alone and hurt and painful because lots of people underestimate this journey, this transformation. And they think, oh, I don't want to be this person, so I need to heal. And then they start on the healing journey, and then it's very painful, and most people stop there because they cannot handle the losing of people or how painful it actually is. And that just, I think, means that they're not completely ready for the transformation. But it's a very challenging trajectory to really overcome all of your blocks, because indeed it starts with loving yourself. And I remember one of the first exercises somebody gave me was looking myself in the mirror, really looking deep into my own eyes, and then saying, I love you. I couldn't do it. And I thought it's very simple, right? They're not difficult words. And I just couldn't do it. And it was like a dam bursting. All of these emotions come out. And then you
Yeah.
start to dive into that and you start realizing what the blocks are that are preventing you from deeply loving yourself. And there are lots of them. So those are the first blocks that we need to overcome, the blocks that keep us from loving
Loving.
ourselves. And then
Yes.
yeah, there are indeed societal expectations or societal norms. I know that Asian cultures, lots of Asian cultures indeed don't really deal with emotions. Here, there are very different societal norms, lots of religion norms that play a factor in lives of people. So there can be all these blocks that play a huge role in your life. So it's
Yeah.
about discovering all of them and then one by one tackling them in order to free yourself up to be you. In the end,
Yes.
that's what it's about, to just be you. And it also sounds very simple, but it's very difficult for most people to just be the real you, the authentic you, the true you.
100%. Like it sounds simple, exactly you said, but that is one of the hardest things because because I think it hits the nail on the head when you peel back all the layers, right? If you see it as this is love, are you lovable? Or yes, right? And then you see this like, oh, societal expectations. If you don't have like if you do not meet those expectations, you may be seen as a failure. And then you hate yourself even more. And it goes back to like another layer of like hating yourself or not loving yourself. And then all the different things, and and so I think about it that sense. And at the end of the day, that loving yourself is such a painful journey because that's what you mentioned, right?
Mhm.
Because there's so many deep layers. Some of it is conscious, some of it's unconscious. Some of it is
Yes.
we learn it.
Yeah.
And then we don't even know that they actually contribute to us hating ourselves. I love when you say look at yourself in the mirror. When I was going through my dark night of the soul, actually leading up to it, I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. Actually, there was one I hated taking pictures with
Oh
myself
yeah.
in it.
I've
I
hated that all
never,
of my life, taking
yes,
pictures of me. Yeah.
I thought it was ugly. People told me I was ugly because people would tell me all the time, "Why don't you smile a little bit more?" Which
Yes.
then I hate myself more because
Yeah.
I wasn't pretty enough, I wasn't adorable enough, I wasn't likable enough, and therefore not loved enough. And
Yeah.
so I was like, if nobody could love me outside, then there must be something really, really wrong with me,
Yeah.
was what I internalized growing up. And
Mhm.
so like I hated taking pictures of myself. So there were few pictures of me when I was growing up. And I remember I could not look at myself in the mirror was the hardest thing. I will look inside my mirror to make sure like everything's in place. And then I'll go, oh, I'll scoff at myself in the mirror.
Yeah.
I did that all the time. And I
Yeah.
didn't know that was unhealthy until I started my journey, which took several years of healing. And
Yeah.
then now I can look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, hi, I like you. It is a
Yeah.
total different transformation.
That's absolutely right, and it goes beyond just the face. I could also not look at my body. I had all of these
Same here.
judgments about
Yeah.
myself, about my face, but also about my body, and I indeed also felt unlovable and unlikable. And that I think that that was the main reason why I started putting on weight, because it was really a protection mechanism against the harsh outer world, the world I couldn't thrive in, the world I couldn't survive in. So my body was really packing on to protect, figure literally. And I see that happening with lots of clients as well. So there are so many factors that play a part in the wounding that we have, and that's not even talking about what they now discovered with epigenetics. And they
Yes.
discovered that the way other people talk about you and the way that you think about yourself, both of these things change us at a DNA level. When you
Yeah.
actually think about it, it's both very exciting, but also both very scary, because lots of people think, oh, it's hereditary, or I got that from my father, I got that from my mother. And to an extent, that might be true, but when your thoughts can control your DNA, that means that it doesn't have to be true if you don't want it to. And that with your thoughts, you can change it. And the scary part is then that if people make you believe stuff about
Yeah.
yourself, like you're ugly, you're unlovable, you are unworthy, you are lesser than what lots of us feel and think, then that also changes you on a DNA level. And like you, many people told me, why don't you smile more? Smiling requires a lot less muscles than always looking so angry. And I remember angry. I was never angry, but I was deeply, deeply miserable. And apparently that looked like anger on the outside.
Yeah. And I was deeply angry. But
Well,
I really had no reason to be happy at that
well,
time, right? Yeah.
I discovered
Yeah.
I was that angry later on because I was so angry that I even managed to hide it from myself.
That's the subconscious, right? And so when we talk
Yes.
about that, a lot of it, and especially when we are caught for a higher purpose, right? And usually
Yes.
that involves being of service. We're asked to step outside our comfort zone. If you deeply believe you're not worthy and you deeply believe you're not loved, why would you do that? You
Yes.
wouldn't think you would be, and so for me, I knew that calling was so deep. It kept calling and calling. Like the phone that keeps ringing or the door that keeps knocking, and you're like, up to some point, you're like, okay, I will open the door and I'll answer the phone because I just
Yeah.
want you to stop.
Yeah.
Because again, I tried different avenues. I went to tried different career paths, and and it all led me to that deep unfulfillment
Yes.
until I was like, okay, again, time to flip the script. What if the things I wanted was not what society told me, what was not my parents told me? And then I
Mm.
had to ask myself, what do I really want? Right. And then being, I had to learn to love myself because that would mean then what I wanted was valuable. Because before that, I was like, I didn't know how much I hated myself.
Mhm.
And I didn't know that until I started that journey of healing. And then I realized after I learned and loved myself, I'm like, what I want is valuable. I
Mhm.
have value. I am worthy. Let me
Yes.
go do this thing.
Yeah.
And then another layer of, again, unworthiness, right? Another layer of like, oh, I don't want to be on camera, or it used to be really difficult for
Yes.
me to even be like doing this talk. I
Yeah.
would be so nervous. I would have a script
Yeah.
ready. I was so afraid. Now I'm like, let's just talk. I am not, I don't have a script prepared. Let's just
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
But it took me
100%.
2 years before I can get here
Mhm.
because I was so afraid of like, what would other people think of me? Like, what would they, and
Yeah.
all of this kept coming up.
Yes.
Again, it's because I'm afraid I'm not lovable.
No, and a big part in that is accepting yourself for who
Yeah.
you are, the weird, the quirky. People used to call, and to be honest, they still call me rude, for instance. And I am not rude. I just don't beat around the bush. I am very honest, and people can see that, or it comes across apparently as rude. And that took also a long time to accept that that is just the way I am. And I don't mean because some people say they are very honest and they use their honesty to hurt people. That is not who I am. But it's, if you want to know if a dress looks right on you, I would say, nah, not really. Or, oh yeah, I like this one. And it's just being honest. But it took me a couple of tries to finally realize that I need to ask clarifying questions. Do you want the honest answer? Do you want the supportive answer? Or do you just want to rant and then the listening shoulder ear thing?
Yeah.
Do you
Yes.
want?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So we have to learn to sort of translate ourselves to societal speak, societal language, but also the
Yes.
other way around. The way society works, we need to translate that into something that makes sense to us. So a really big part of it is also understanding yourself.
Yeah. And then accepting your flaws.
Yeah.
Again, accepting the flaws. And for me, it was accepting, because I love the word acceptance, because I had to accept a lot of things. I had to forgive a lot of things. I have to forgive my parents. I have to forgive myself. I have to forgive everyone, but mostly myself. I had to forgive myself. And actually, forgiving myself was one of the biggest things, because it just allowed me to feel that love. Because I had to forgive myself for hating myself so much, for being so mean to myself, and I had to, and that was a huge, the biggest thing for me, the biggest lesson, one of the very biggest lessons was forgiving myself.
Mm,
And then I was able to accept even my flaws and to not hate myself for those flaws, but to accept it and see it as this is part of who I am and it's beautiful. And
yes.
so I started looking at all the challenges I went through, all the pain, and I started asking the question of like, where is the meaning? What is the meaning of this? What is the
Mm,
purpose of this experience I went through?
yeah.
And I went through a lot of those pain. And
Mm,
I looked at it from, again, those became blocks later, right? And so I looked at it more curious, with a curious mind, and asked this, what is the purpose? How does this contribute to who I am today? How does this actually make me
mm,
stronger? And
yeah.
how is this part of my purpose?
Yeah.
And then when I started doing that, again, this didn't happen overnight. It took me a
Mm,
while,
yeah.
and using different modality, Reiki, energy healing. I do the Akashic Records. The Akashic Records for me was the biggest modality that helped me understand a lot of things.
Mhm.
But then I combined that with, energy healing, journaling as well, human design,
Yeah.
all of this different modality, numerology, astrology, all of that, to kind of help me make sense and understand myself a lot more. And so obviously the 1-3 in my human design, the one is all about the learning. And that was why I was learning different modalities.
Yes. Yeah, I'm like you. I also started with energy healing. I have different modalities in that. And then I went into different coaching modalities. I did emotional freedom techniques, the emotion code to work with the emotions. And then I discovered human design and the gene keys. And I think in the end, it doesn't really matter which modality you find. That there are many that have really great benefits, but it's that you find the thing that works for you, that sparks your interest, and that really lights you up. Because in the end, it's about, I call it discovering your user manual, the ins and outs
Oh,
of
love
what
it.
makes you you, so that you can start working with who you really are and loving who you really are, accepting who you really are, and then step into what you came here to do. Because we all have a purpose. And when we keep ourselves in the position of people pleasing and unworthiness and all of those things, then we are actually doing not only a disservice to ourselves, but also a disservice to the world, because we are here with a specific purpose, with a specific mission, with something specific to do. And the longer we take to discover what that is, the less of service we are to the whole.
Yeah. and the more unhappy you are, because there are many of us who are awakening right now. And you talked about the shift earlier on,
Yeah.
that we are definitely this period of huge, great shift. And a lot of us may be feeling this as well. And with this shift, right, it's this invitation to really come home to yourself. Right.
Yeah.
And that invitation to, by coming home to yourself, is how you uncover your purpose. So many of us do feel that way, that we are here for something greater. Um, Not everybody, because everyone, according to the, everyone's here for a different reason. But a lot of people who are interested in your talk, who are interested in working with me, all of this, right? Who are interested in just kind of like exploring more about spirituality, exploring more about this cosmic universe, etc., are
Yeah.
all kind of have this almost nagging feeling of
Yeah.
like, time for you to wake up and time for you to step into your purpose and your power.
Yes, exactly. And what I would love to talk a bit more about, because everybody knows by now, I think that I work with the human design and the gene keys. But I know that there are a lot of people don't really know what the Akashic records are. And I also know that you work with Dragon Alchemy. So could we maybe go into that you could explain a bit what it is
Yeah.
and everything?
Yeah, I love to, because the Akashic Records for me is kind of my through line. It's how a lot of almost everything I do is part of I do it in the Akash. So the Akashic Records it is a library of your soul's memory. And so when people talk about soul blueprint, etc., it is this collection of everything, our thoughts, our deeds, our desires, all our lifetimes recorded in this Akashic record. So it's like people think of it as a library sometimes. And I go to the Akashic Records. So for me, the Akashic Records is really helpful in understanding your purpose, because your contracts are also there. Soul
Mhm.
contracts, your vows, your karma, your karmic ties, all of that is written there. And
Yeah.
so it allowed me, for me, awareness is really important. And so going there and going on journeys, and I call them like guided journeys through my Akashic Records to see my past lives. I did a lot of that initially to understand how those past lives impact my relationships today. How, what are the gifts that I have, that are gifts that are, that it's part of my lineage, my soul lineage and my ancestral lineage. How can I use those gifts? What are those gifts? How can I use those gifts? How can they help me today? Where are my guides? Who are my guides? All of that, all I access them through like my Akashic records. And I do that for clients too. And the dragons came in as I was accessing, like dragons are really, really powerful alchemists and powerful manifestors. They are very, very, for me, they are here to help us ascend, and they're really here to help us with our soul purpose. So
Mhm.
everyone works, a lot of people work with dragons. Everyone works with dragons differently, I think. For me, the dragons are really here to help us protect and illuminate and help keep us on the path, our soul purpose. And so they are often the ones who help clear the path for us, illuminate it. A lot of the people I work with are light barriers, light workers, star seeds, and healers, even coaches, but they're really here to do service. And they could be counselors even, and they would start working, or they want to work with the dragons, because the dragons are really good at forming protection, but are really good at helping dissolve and transmute blocks, even the unconscious ones, the past life ones. All
Yeah.
of that are multidimensional being, right? Because we are multidimensional beings, and they are too, and they help us clear all of that. And so clear all the blocks, I mean, and energetic imprints, etc. And
Mm.
so I bring the dragons in, I bring their fire, their alchemy in, a lot of times in sessions with clients. And my clients now also bring dragons in their sessions. And it's really fun and really interesting to received a lot of these testimonials from my clients who are like, oh, a dragon just showed up randomly after a session with you. And now I'm working with dragons too, because they are here to really help light workers
Mm.
stay the path and to protect them too.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
So, when would someone reach out to you? When would someone want to know more or work with their Akashic records or want to work with dragons? What would be some of the feelings, situations that people will be in?
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question. When you feel so some people are naturally drawn to dragons. They
Mm,
already feel their energy, or they're very interested in them. And I said, this is perfect. Others dream about dragons, others some people don't have no affinity with dragons, but then they started in their meditation or even in their dreams, or they start seeing a lot of dragon symbols and signs, and they're like, what's going on? And so they're curious. And
mhm,
that's also another sign that dragons are kind of calling. So dragons do not violate free will. They are like angels. They won't come in until and unless you said okay. And so
mm,
they may tell you, kind of like knocking on your door, right? They may be out here in the periphery telling you, I want to come in. I want to help you in your healing. I want to help you awakened or heal. But they won't unless you say, okay, let's learn more about this. And oftentimes, the people who are newer to this or who are newer to working with dragons come to me because they're like, what's going on? And they want me to guide them through the connection with dragons. And each dragon comes to a person with a unique purpose as well that's very much aligned with the person's purpose. And so
mm,
then when we make the connection, then I help with, why are they here for you? Who are they? And how can you work with them? All of that stuff. I do that through the Akashic Records because their dragons are related to their Akashic Records. And through the Akashic Records is when, if there's any questions about blocks in your current life, challenges, past life, how does the past affect my present? All of that stuff. People love to know about things like, do I have a contract with some guides? And what is my purpose? All of those questions, the Akashic Records can't answer. And so people who are interested in, I would say, just energy, like interested in past life work, soul retrieval, gift retrieval, all of that. It's very much Akashic. And I would say, listen to your intuition. Do you feel a connection? If you feel a connection, then I am your guide. If you don't,
mhm.
that's okay. Someone else is your guide,
Yeah.
and I hope you continue to explore what the Akashic Records can do, because all of us vibrate at a different frequency.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's
that's
exactly why I don't believe in competition, because in the end, you and I do very similar work. We use different types of tools, but the end result that we want to help people achieve is very, very simple or similar, not simple, similar.
No, it's very simple. Yeah. Yeah.
But
And
yeah,
people can work with both. Like, I work with so many different healers and they all do similar things, but their energy is very different. And so for
yeah,
me, I would be like, I'm just drawn to this person right now because I need something to help me move. And
yeah,
then once I move that, I'm no longer drawn to this person. I may be drawn to someone else. And
yeah,
that's how I feel into their energy too. The same way
exactly.
when I choose teachers. To learn a modality, exactly the same way. If I don't feel drawn to their energy, then I'm like, no, it's not a match right now.
Exactly. And that's exactly why I don't believe in competition, because everybody
Yeah.
attunes to a different type of frequency, to a different type of energy. And that being said, I can imagine that when you've been following us and listening to our talk, that maybe you had some insights that you might want to share in the comments so that you can inspire other people. Maybe you have some questions. Also, don't hesitate to put those in the comments, and we will both answer them when we see them. And I can also imagine that you feel drawn to Michelle's energy. So, where can people reach you? How can they find you?
I am on Facebook. I'm really active on Facebook. So, and I would drop my link. I have a link tree. And so that would drop my link in the description. And this is a place to find me, to see the thing, just to get in my energy, right? I post a lot of like guest interviews and podcasts just to get a feel of my energy, what I do. And so this is always a great place to start. I always like, if I've never worked with that person, I always encourage them, just be in my energy for a little bit and just like see. And sometimes people reach out just to test. I love talking to people and new people. So feel free to like send me an email or drop me a DM. And then just to see how we can, how I can help you shift and move. Because a lot of what I do in the Akashic is not just the awareness and channeling it and giving you information, it's also healing. We
Yes.
do a lot of release, and I work with archangels, I work with dragons, I love working dragons, and to help clear and release everything that doesn't serve us, but we do it in a really guided meditation. And it's sometimes we do a past life regression too. And so
Mhm.
you are seeing it and then releasing it too. So a lot of times it's is really empowering because I'm here to empower you and I'm here to empower people. And so
Yeah.
it ends up being this really empowering session because they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't know I could do this on my own. And I'm like, there you go.
Yeah.
And then they go off and then they do, it really fantastic because they go off and then they do amazing things. And a year later, they're like, hey, I just opened my own business, my own spiritual business or coaching business. And I love those.
Yes.
Embrace it as a journey is what the dragons say. And yeah, they're here to guide us if you feel called to. They're here to guide us on our soul purpose and our mission.
I love that. I indeed also work with the Akashic Records and with dragons. I've always been drawn to dragons for some reason. So it's a beautiful energy. So if you feel called, don't hesitate to reach out to Michelle. I'll make sure that both her links as well as mine are included in the description that goes with this video, so that it will be very easy for you to reach out to either one of us. And yeah, for today, I think thank you. This has been an amazing talk again.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love talking about these things because for so many people, it's still in the phase of I don't know what is happening and I don't know what to do and I don't know how to move forward. The only thing that I do now know is that I don't want to continue the way I was going. So they are looking for information, they're looking for things. And like you, I'm also a firm believer of talks like this are not only helping and informing, but also great ways of getting to know people's personality and their energy and what they're about so that you can decide if this resonates for you, yes or no.
Yeah,
So thank
yeah.
you.
Thank you so much. Always lovely to be in your energy and be in your light.
Thank you so much. And also, of course, thank you for always watching these episodes, for supporting this channel by subscribing to it so that these videos can reach even more people, and by actively sharing the content if you feel that it was valuable and that other people could benefit from it. For now, I think the only thing to say is just have an amazing rest of your day, and I look forward to inspiring you again next week with another beautiful guest.